So, without any further ado, let us jump in. We are going to start the video part, and I'm going to optimize this. There we go. And we'll see you in about 15 minutes, 16 minutes, but we'll see you just momentarily in the chat. All right, start the screen share. All right, let's take on this kind of rather sensitive topic, your digital legacy. What happens to your social when you are no motional? Let's dive in. Now, I'm going to start things off by giving you a caveat. I am obviously not an attorney and estate planner. So what we're going to be talking about as far as our digital legacy is short-term solutions of making things easier for your community, for your loved ones in the short-term aftermath. I would expect that most of us have thought long-term about what happens to our accounts, and we'll have some sort of and all of our assets. And there'll be some sort of a transition plan in place in your full will. But those things, of course, once your executor starts, take time to go through the systems, and there's lots of forms to fill out, etc. So we're talking about dealing with the short-term issues. What happens to your Facebook profile, your YouTube and Instagram profiles, your online accounts, things that your business partners or your life partners need access to kind of in the short term, and probably don't need at that point in their journey the frustration of not being able to access things that they might need to access and having to work through the different permissions and the delays that would be in place. So we're going to talk about our main social profiles. We're going to talk about the rules that the different social networks put in place for us to follow. Talking a little bit about digital will, some resources that I have found online. So all of the information that I'm going to share with you today comes from my own research online, which comes from other people's opinions. Some of it's professional opinion, some of it's just good common sense. So take it as it will and do your own research and fact check, please. It's interesting that we decided to do this particular webinar now in April, because I think it was April 16th. It was 2007 that the part of the world changed for a lot of us. That was the Virginia Tech massacre, when 32 students and a shooter lost their lives in a terrible massacre in Virginia Tech. And what makes it so relevant and so pertinent in this space, why it comes up now, is prior to that the event, Facebook had a policy of deleting profiles of deceased people. And at this time here, Facebook was just getting into the mainstream. It was just breaking away from the colleges and the universities where it started. But the students that were friends of the slain students petitioned Facebook to allow them to memorialize the accounts. They recognized that much of their lives, many of their memories were ensconced in these Facebook profiles. And they petitioned, and Facebook did change the rules to allow the profiles to be kept active, but not active the same way a living person's was, where there was conversations happening, but kind of enshrined and memorialized, so that friends could go back, leave thoughts and that sort of stuff, but they could view the posts, they could view the everyday things that were part of Facebook as they mourned and went through the process themselves. And that's become quite a common practice, where often now we're actually hearing of people's passing first in Facebook, and then we're sharing photos, we're sharing memories, we're sharing ideas on the person who's passed Facebook profile. It's become a meeting place, as well as some other options that we have. But it's only 10 years ago. That's a very long time and a very short time at the same time. But that's kind of, for me, when Facebook became the fabric of our lives at that point there, when I recognized with what those students were doing and how they were handling that awful time in their lives, and how Facebook actually became more than just a social network at that point. It became part of their lives. And so I think it's well worth us thinking about that and considering that and understanding the genesis of kind of where we're at now. So you might be, all of you that are here obviously are concerned. But if you're wondering, kind of who, this is for everybody, I believe, but certainly if you have a significant online presence, you have to be concerned with your digital legacy, with what happens to your accounts. If you have a significant other that needs access to your ongoing accounts, be they financial accounts, social media accounts, evergreen accounts as far as passive income accounts, all of that sort of content stuff they have to have access to. Sometimes you have businesses that you're running that your partners need access to those in order to keep them going until they can properly be sold or transitioned. And let's not forget that many of us are a sandwich generation. We have aging parents, and having access to our parents' accounts is not necessarily a bad idea, especially not even if they pass, but if they become incapable of doing some processes themselves. Being able to access those accounts, being able to execute some things on their behalf is also really beneficial. So let's begin with Facebook. And Facebook is actually, they just recently made a little bit of a change that makes things a lot easier. So Facebook allows us to, we always have several options here. You know, we can certainly just share our username and password with a loved one, which will allow them full access to the account, where they can go in and they can see all of our messages, see all our chat, and basically act as us in Facebook. And of course, that is frowned upon by privacy for privacy considerations, and Facebook would never encourage you to do that. That's certainly one option, and we'll be talking about probably the easiest way to execute that option at the end of the webinar today, at the end of this section. But Facebook officially it encourages you to create something called a legacy contact. Now, a legacy contact is somebody who can access your account. They can't access everything in your account. For example, they can't go into your chat and into your messenger and do conversations, but they have limited access to your account. That they can go in, they can pin a post to the top explaining to people what happened, and they can manage your Facebook profile from that perspective there. And it's fairly easy to go in and set up the memorialized accounts. If we just jump into Facebook, in Facebook you go under the little caret at the top there, and you go into your settings. In settings, you will find under security, or is it security or privacy? I think it's security. Yes, under security, legacy contact. You see right here? And this is to choose a family member, close friend, to care for your account if something happens to you. So what happens here is you then will go through this information here, and let's just close these down. There we go. You'll go through this information here. Choose a friend who is a legacy contact. They will be, and it kind of walks you through all of the instructions here. You can also at this point here choose to request that your account be deleted if you pass, which is a good option. Now Facebook, and it's of course a personal choice that you're gonna make. And Facebook recommends that if people are interested in using Facebook as a part of the memorial process, instead of using the past person's personal profile for a meeting place and sharing ideas place, creating a group that's a memorial group of that person. So you've got a couple of different options there that you can follow, but Facebook suggests a group, which actually isn't a bad idea when you think about it. But you can go through yourself. As soon as we're done with the webinar, choose a legacy contact, set up that legacy contact for somebody that can then execute your wishes or make their best decision on what to do with your account once you pass. So Facebook has it pretty well in hand. Several options there. Google approaches it from a slightly different perspective. Google has something called an inactive account manager, which they have for virtually all of the different Google accounts. Now, the inactive account manager is a way that you can set a time limit on activity on your account being dormant. And then you've assigned an individual to be your inactive account manager. They will receive an email from Google saying, Steve requested that if his account was inactive for X period of time, for you to have access to the account. Now, you don't have full access to the account. You can't delete the account. You can't act as the account owner, but you can access all of the content in the account. So say for YouTube or for a Google Plus account, if you still had one, I guess, or for email, you can gain access to the data which is in that account not manage the account itself. And there's a nice description over here. It doesn't take too long to go through any of these descriptions, but it walks us right through here about how and it's a very similar process to Facebook, how you go through and you assign a person to be your inactive account manager. And they quite clearly walk you through the entire process. Now, we will send you an email with all of these links when we're done. As a matter of fact, we're going to be taking this entire webinar. We're going to be ensconcing it in a little free mini course that we'll host on Thinkific. I'm not sure exactly when it'll be up, but we think that there's enough different things that people are interested in here and enough conversation that should happen around this that we're going to create a little course out of this, but you'll get some follow-up information on this. So Facebook allows you to set a legacy contact. Google, inactive account manager. When your account's dormant for a period of time, a long period of time, then they are sent information they are sent a request to deal with it. And actually the email kind of comes from you. It might be kind of spooky or it comes from Google, but it'll say, whoever you are, Steve requested that you receive it. So it's a little bit, all of this is a little awkward, isn't it? Instagram will allow you to memorialize an account, and they're very similar to Facebook, as you can imagine. I mean, they're the same basic company. But when a deceased person's account is memorialized, it's basically locked, and it's turned into kind of almost like a shrine where people can go and they look at it. It's as it was. The people who had access to it, as far as friends and followers, still have access. No new people will be brought on, and all of the posts and photos are there. But it's static. It's no longer a dynamic account. And again, there's a nice little simple form here, and there's not a lot I think that the person does proactively before that you do, but instead there's a request of a memorialization that happens afterwards. And so it's all here in the Instagram, in this Instagram link where they walk you through it for Instagram. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Instagram changing this to match very closely the Facebook settings sometime in the near future, because theirs seem a little standoffish as far as what they offer there in Instagram. All right, now those are the main profiles that you want to consider. And I mean, having your accounts dealt with relatively quickly after your passing is a great idea, because things like once an account is memorialized and once the social networks know that the person's passed, unfortunate incidents are dramatically reduced. For example, an unfortunate incident would be, when you get those little videos of you and your friends, or, Steve and so are friends. Well, if the so-and-so friend has recently passed, it's good if Facebook knows that, so they don't put this cheery little record of you and the person who you've lost, and all these memories kind of reopening wounds. And there's a lot of cases of that. People have been complaining about, even that Facebook creates little quirky videos of people and their ex-partners or their pets that have passed. So there's plenty of times that Facebook manages to reopen old wounds because of these automated celebrations that go on. But once a person's account has been memorialized, one hopes that Facebook severely limits the number of these sorts of celebrations that they share with us. So once the main social profiles, I think that we've kind of dealt with, and certainly all of the links, you've got to make decisions yourself on what you're going to do. I'm not going to say what are best practices, because I don't know what the best practices are. They're going to be for each individual. But there is one other, I think, pretty compelling tool that we should consider. And I haven't looked into all of the different password managers, but LastPass has something called emergency access. And this opens an entirely different opportunity for you. So LastPass will allow you to designate a contact who requests access to LastPass, and then you set a time limit on when they can receive that access. So effectively what happens is you create, let me see if I can show it to you. You go into LastPass. I'm just going to open my LastPass account here. And I'm going to have to blur a lot of stuff, I can tell you right now, because we're going right into my real account. But down here, you see here is something called emergency access. With this, you can determine who can request from LastPass access to your account. And then they basically make a request to LastPass, and then you set a time limit. Say 3 hours after that request is made, they would try and reach you if you were still around, which you probably aren't at this point. And at that point there, they will then release your account to those individuals. Now, I like the idea of LastPass because if you choose to give your significant other or your business partner access to your LastPass account, they have access to your full accounts. They can go in and they can make real substantive changes to those accounts. Now, I'm not sure that a lawyer and a privacy expert would say that I am on the right ground here as far as giving access to all of my bank accounts, for example, et cetera, and all of that sort of information to somebody else. Having said that, if it's a life partner, a wife, a husband, somebody like that you trust, and that you want to make things easy for them, and so getting into access to things like your bank account so that you can, so that they can manage mortgage payments, etc. Those sorts of things, I think, will make what's a terrible time a little less frustrating, at least from an administrative point of view. And so a tool like LastPass that has access to all of those sensitive accounts and all of those practical accounts, I think, is a great way to do things. So it might not be the most firm footing from a legal procedural perspective, but from a human getting over the time, getting through the things that have to be done, there's a lot to be said there. So there are our options. Those are the considerations that we have to take. And we can take this a long ways down the road. You know, who has access to your WordPress account or to your PayPal account? All of those things, I think, have to be dealt with, as far as the business side, within your will and how you're going to disperse those assets and liquidate those assets or migrate those assets. Those are considerations that are far beyond my ken here and the ability for us to deal with right now. But understanding the basic rules of the main social networks, I think we've done that now, and giving us a few different ideas of ways to give access to the accounts to the people who are going to need access to those accounts. I think we've explored that as well. So I think what we'll do now is we'll step into what should be a fairly active Q&A. Okay, I am back. And as I said, a little bit of a shorter video than we do quite often have today, but the the content is pretty simple as far as the processes go. The chat was fascinating through the conversation. I don't know how many of you enabled chat so that you could see it as it was going along, but we had several community members sharing personal stories, which I thank you very much for, and I'd love to deal with sensitively, but also the fact that you shared them illustrates some of the challenges that I hadn't really thought through as I was preparing this, having not gone through this myself in a personal level, and especially Karen's story about the loss of her daughter and Google refusing to shut down her social profiles and her Gmail account, even with the death certificate being mailed in, which being sent to them, which is frankly kind of shocking. But there were several anecdotes of accounts being memorialized, the shock of having the memories brought up in Facebook, and in some cases it's not all bad. It turns into something a little bit more positive. A few of you are mentioning, but it speaks to, when you hear of people who have gone through it, the importance of you putting some stuff in place, putting some decisions in place that make it easier for your loved ones or your business partners or your family, if you don't love your family, I guess, but your loved ones, to manage it once when that day comes. Because I just kind of, I mean, with all of the grief and everything else going on, adding bureaucratic frustration to that mix is just adding insult to injury, as far as I'm concerned. So now I know that the chat is still going on. I am by myself today right now, so we've got a good sized group. We've got about 224 of you in. So right now, what I'm going to do, if you haven't been asking questions in the Q&A, I might miss the conversation, because I'm going to be concentrating right now, reading through the Q&A and taking the questions from the top there, working my way through them all. So if you do have a question, make sure that you post it into the Q&A, or you have a comment, and we'll get to it. So we're in great shape time-wise. Once again, I'm going to remind you, it looks like the recording is going really well. We will send you a recording of this, as well as we will send you a document that has all of the listing of all of the different links and the resource pages that I used as I was preparing for this particular for this event. So Sylvia said, hi, Steve. So there we go. We go, hi. Avram says that he's actually, what's stimulated me to develop this webinar. Oh, it's gone. There it is. What stimulated me to develop the webinar on this topic? Since he holds a JD degree, is that a Justice Department? I'm not too sure what JD is, but do not practice law. You're stimulating people to ask questions of their lawyers when preparing their will. By the way, I'm a pathologist now in consulting and regulatory affairs. You know, what caused me to think about this? It's always been something that's kind of in the back of my mind. And there wasn't one particular event. Maybe it was hearing again the anniversary date of the of Virginia Tech caused me to think about just how substantial that was and what a kind of a watershed moment it was in the evolution of social media becoming part of the fabric of our lives. And then that got me thinking about the entire transition stuff, and that's what kind of stimulated this entire conversation. Plus, you know, I'm always looking for value to the community, and it's not always stuff that's going to be fun and lighthearted. So it's those were the kind of the motivating factors, but nothing other than that. So there we go. So that was Avram's question. So Mike asks. Mike says he has both. We were having some issues with chat. So we've got that answered now. Yes. So just so we know, some of you, I don't know why some of you had access to chat and other ones didn't. I don't know what the line of demarcation was at the start of the pre-recorded segment, but I found within my settings in the management console the ability to enable chatting to both panelists and to everybody for the entire community. So that was a switch here on our side. Actually, I see there's somebody's asking here. I just noticed over. JD is a lawyer. Thank you so much for that. Okay, more of a statement. Peter says that he created a graphic. So I'm going to. So if you take a look in the Q&A, Peter has a graphic that is relevant. It's a shameless plug, but what the heck? We're good with shameless plugs here on Webinar Wednesday if it's of value to the community. So I thank you for sharing that. Then Peggy says, hooray, I fixed it. I did fix it. I did. It was all me. It was all me. Ain't I so smart? So there we go. What about Twitter? Actually, Ricardo is asking, what about Twitter? And I noticed in the chat also somebody was asking something about LinkedIn. I didn't actually look into those as closely, but what we'll do is I'll reach out to Vivica von Rosen before I send out the email and ask her what the rules are around LinkedIn, because if anybody knows, Vivica will know. And I will do a little bit of research and we'll include links to Twitter and to LinkedIn to make sure that we complete the cycle of the different social networks. So good question there. Thanks for bringing those up. What if no one informs the social platforms? That's a really good question, Deepak. I'm sure that there's cases where it's delayed, and we see, you know, there's going to be a number of hours from the time that a tragedy happens or an event happens, and it resolves through the entire system. So there's always going to be something that's a little bit unfair and probably untoward in the interim period, in the delta between the passing of somebody and when the social networks catch up. But there is definitely mechanisms to inform the networks, even if you're kind of at a tangent, if you're not an immediate relative. But I'm sure that it gets resolved pretty quickly, where somebody lets them finally know, at least with anybody with anything close to an active profile at all. Larry says, are the legacy contact forms legally binding? Do you have any cases where the legal options, where legacy options have been put to use? I don't personally. I've got a few friends who I know their accounts have been memorialized. I wasn't the one that enabled it. I wasn't the executor of their estate or anything like that. So I don't know exactly how legally binding it is. But it's because it's all just done digitally, you know, especially when you could just go into Facebook. You saw the process. You just go into your account settings, go into security, click, and then an email is sent out that basically, and I guess the person has to be one of your friends on Facebook, but the switches that they're now assigned as your legacy contact. So I haven't heard of any times that it's been challenged in any legal aspect up to this point. So if somebody has more information on that, I'd be happy if you'd share it. Jill says, do you know if a Keeper has a similar feature to the emergency access to LastPass? Don't really know, Jill. Somebody that I know, I've got a few friends that uses Keeper. I'm sure some of you use Keeper. So if one of you can let us know if they have it, and if they don't, maybe you just didn't know it was there. I know a lot of people commented that they didn't know that that feature was in LastPass. So I imagine they do have something along that line. But even if they don't have that official feature, you can set it up so that you have with your loved one that you can say, you know, this is my master password. You store it in a secure place and give them access to that account. Would do pretty much the same thing. LastPass requires the merchants of contact has LastPass as well. Anna says, or ask. I believe that's a statement. They wouldn't need to have LastPass because that's how you actually make the request. So yes, they would have to have LastPass. What about a dead man switch? Anne says, I don't know. That would I imagine what you're referring to is the concept on a train, a dead man switch, where the train engineer has to keep constant pressure on the accelerator, or it eases off and the train slows down to a stop. I imagine the dead man switch is for, say, the Google accounts, is the inactive account access, where you're notified if the account isn't active, if there's no traffic, if you're not active on your account, that it slows down. You do have the option in Facebook for sure to, as soon as your death is public knowledge, to ask Facebook to remove your account. So you can set the criteria in place. I think that's probably the closest thing to what you're asking about there. Jill says, John asked if I've looked into LinkedIn. As I say, we will make sure that we get that out in the follow-up email. Happy to do that. Okay, Katie is asking, you mentioned URLs, and then I thought of hosting accounts. There are so many. There are, and one of the resources that we have is the instructions in what some of the hosting services. And I pulled a GoDaddy document where they explain to you exactly what has to happen in order to gain access. And there's other criteria there as well. If it's a business account that you've got, the credit card and the original owner of that account is the only one that can renew the domain registry. So if you want to keep it, so if you have, say, a small web business, an online business, and you want to keep it going for whoever follows on in the business, you have to make sure that you put in place in your will with your executor. You have to make sure that you have a succession plan put in place that you can then articulate it to the hosting companies, because that's a lot. And all of those little accounts, all those domains that you've reserved, a year or so after you pass, your credit card's no longer going to be valid. Those are all going to expire. So if you want them to be held, and if you want them to be assets for somebody else, you have to make sure that you set up transition of all of those things. There's quite a spider web of things, of the accounts. I mean, you think about, if you use a tool like LastPass, take a look at how many accounts you have in LastPass. There are dozens by the time you get through it, and all of those probably somebody's going to want to be touching at some point after you're gone. There's a lot to it. So thank you for that, Katie. Thank you for that comment, KT. Okay, so Patricia is asking, do you know what happens with Hotmail accounts? Hotmail is it's going to be another web-based account. It's something that you should just be able to look Hotmail Legacy or Hotmail after you die. If you do a quick search, it'll bring you to a document within the Microsoft site that talks to you about that. And a live account. They all have policies in place. That's one thing that I found, and they're easy to find. A quick search is going to find them. So any of the social platforms that we didn't talk about, you now know enough to be able to find it yourself, I think. Any thoughts and comments about Twitter? Dennis asks. We will make sure we include the link to the Twitter to identify exactly what happens with Twitter. Rita says, can we share the link with family and friends? Does it have important info about social media? It does have. Are you asking if you can share the replay of this webinar and the links that we're going to send with your family and friends? Absolutely. Absolutely, you can do that. We're happy to do that. Now, a reminder that the webinar replay, I didn't actually get into we were kind of a little more serious today as far as the topic goes. But I will take a moment now to explain to those of you exactly how the replay setup works here on Dottotech. Is once this webinar is over and once we finished, I'll make the replay available for 48 hours to the entire community, to anybody, and you can share the link. You can share that video with any of your family, friends, anybody who you want to have access to this conversation, as well as the email, of course, that we're going to be sending out. Once that 48 hours is up, we then pull back the webinar replay and we archive it in our Patreon account for the benefit of our supporters on Patreon. See, Dottotech is funded through the generosity of our Patreon community. And I didn't say off the top, a special welcome to all of our patrons at Patreon who do such a great job of supporting us and allowing us to present content like this, stuff that's not necessarily, there's no profit in doing a webinar on this topic, but it's for the common good of the Dottotech community. And the reason we can afford to do that is the support we get through Patreon. So in a nutshell, what happens at Patreon is people give us $10 a month. They pledge $10 a month. In return, they get a bunch of perks. One of those perks is these webinar replays. This is our 13th or 14th tutorial webinar. All of those are now archived in Patreon, and we will continue to do one each week for as long as we can. You also get access to our premium courses at half price. Right now, we're selling our course on delivering great webinars, and it's $249 for our patrons. The rest of the community is spending close to $500 for that, so you save 50% on that. Plus, you get access to our Evernote Made Easy course, which is our most popular course. It's a 10-part course teaching you how to use Evernote. So all of those perks are included with your Patreon support. And if you go to patreon.com/Dottotech, here I will put it in the chat. This is fascinating webinar stuff, isn't it? But there is where you go and you will get all of the information that you need. By the way, I love all of these recommendations. We are going to take this. I've already talked to Sophia. We're taking this content and we're going to ensconce it in a small little mini course that we will share publicly as well. So it'll be outside of the Patreon community as well at that point there. But I love the idea of sharing it with ARP and with CARP in Canada. I love how the Association of Retired People in Canada is called CARP. I think it's so much better when you think about people of our vintage carping and complaining about things, but that's the Canadian one. Lots of word plays today. When we started talking about LastPass, for it that whole last thing suddenly has a whole different term, doesn't it? A whole different meaning. So there we go. So that's what's happening. By the way, let's get back to the questions here in a moment. But before we do, I should tell you about next week's webinar. Next week we are actually in, and I'm invoking my very first poll. And it comes right up in the middle. There we go. Next week, we are going to be in Victoria at Social Media Camp. And a big part of the Dottotech team is going to be there as well, as Jen and April are both going to come into Victoria to hang out with Steve at Social Media Camp. But it means that we're not going to be home. I'm not going to be working from home. And if we do a webinar, we can all be together in the same room, but I didn't have a topic that kind of demarked for us all to do together. So I thought maybe we'd just do an open Q&A. But I wanted to hear whether or not you folks like that idea or not. And if you're totally against it, let us know with the big no that you want a defined topic. But there's a really good chance that if we do a webinar next week, it is going to be just kind of a Q&A where you can ask whatever questions you want, because I will have Jen and April in the same room with me at the same time, and who knows what chaos that could cause. And there's also a possibility we might decide just not to do a webinar next week, just because we're going to be so darn busy with the running around Social Media Camp, which is going to be a hoot. Anybody here in Victoria that's going to be there. We're going to have a great time over in Victoria. Looking forward to it. So I see that evenly split. About a quarter of you really want us to have a defined topic, and I respect that. I have no issues with that. About 28% say, yeah, you'd be okay with it being just an open Q&A, and about 50%, so about 75% of you say it doesn't really matter. That you'll probably participate in the webinar no matter what. So I like that. Thank you all very much. This is good. And this was an excuse to test out the Zoom polling features as well, because I hadn't done a poll. But it's interesting how it pops up right in front. You can't miss the Zoom poll, can you? It is there, loud and proud. So I am going to end this poll now. And let's see, how do the results pop up? Okay, now I've got the results. Oh, I can share the results. And when I share them, yes, it pops up right in the middle of your own screen. And each of us has the ability to close it off ourselves once we've seen it. Excellent. Well, that worked out pretty well, didn't it? Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing the poll now. There we go. Okay, and I just going to close out. There we go. Okay, back to the questions. And we got, how many questions we have? We have 17 questions. We still got 20 minutes to go. Nice having a short video. The short video was better. Sometimes my videos get a little long. Okay. Sorry. So Rita asked if she could share. Absolutely, Rita. Share away. just with the knowledge that the replay is only available for 48 hours at this point. If you're the only named person in a bank account, then the account is restricted to the executor or the court-approved delegated person only. Therefore, it is helpful to have a spouse listed on the cash account. This is from Dominique. If possible, if both are on the loan, then the bank card of the deceased becomes inactive and the partner needs their own online access. Only the executor or court assigned person can access the account. Yeah, so that's, I mean, once you're getting into bank accounts, there's certainly going to be, you dealing legally with exactly what the banks determine. I guess there's a period of time that you can access them if you know the password, etc. And as I say, I'm not positive about the legality of that, but I also know that practically speaking, being able to get money in so that the mortgage is being paid and stuff like that would be something that I would be concerned about as we were going along. Kathleen is asking, am I familiar with Splash ID? Do they have a legacy contact provision? I'm not at all familiar with what Splash ID is or whether or not they have that. So I'm sorry, I don't know. If somebody knows, please share it. Is it necessary to notify the platform about the fact that the owner is no longer here, or does the delegated person just take over? I would say that it's your responsibility to let long term, you've got to let them know. I think short term you can get in and you can moderate things, you can kind of mitigate things. But long term, I think it's your responsibility to let them know that things have changed. But it should all be done legally. I mean, you have an executor, you have all of those sorts of things. So there is within the legal system there are provisions for transitioning all of these accounts. But I would say don't just kind of pretend, keep getting their mail, because don't tell the authorities that the person is gone. I think it's best for everybody if transparency is probably fairly important. Do I have a list of items other than the obvious? Katie, I don't know. See, it wasn't all obvious to me as I went through it all. I had a lot of aha moments. So I don't know what's obvious to you. A lot of this stuff, I guess, was obvious, but some of it wasn't to me. And even in the chat that we had today, people's real experiences caused me to say, whoa, and take a step back. So we've got a list that I think is relevant. I will say that. I don't know. It's up to you to determine whether or not it was obvious or not. For photos, consider forever.com, Dominique says. Oh, excellent. Forever.com storage. So it's a legacy storage site for photos. Very interesting. Good one. Thank you for sharing that, Dominique. We appreciate that. And that's out. It's www.forever.com/forever_storage. Okay. Anna Fernandez says, FYI, to create a contact in LastPass, the contact must also have a LastPass account. Yes, we've determined that is indeed the case in LastPass. Ricardo thanks me, and I appreciate it. What about Skype? Imagine that Skype's going to be handled the same way all the other Microsoft accounts are, but you can take a quick look. I'm not. Is a communications account like Skype, which is more about video conferencing and audio conferencing, is it as relevant? I mean, there is a certain amount of chat that goes on, so it doesn't seem to be as critical an account as, say, a social network like Facebook would be, or a PayPal account. But I'm sure that they have policy that, again, you can search for. But Bill, I don't have any detail on it myself right now. That Bitly link failed. I don't know which Bitly link it was that failed. Maybe you can give me a little more detail, but sorry. Okay. Lynn says, Google considers an account inactive after how long a period of time? 1 month to 6 months? They have that information in the document that we sent you, and I think you can determine yourself also how long that period is. But that's all covered in there in the little document that we gave to you. Statement. Wow. In a nursing home, I have some work to do. Rochelle is saying, yes. And this would be a good video to be sharing in the nursing home. I'm sure everybody would appreciate it. Oops. I accidentally clicked on the wrong one there. Okay. So Peggy is asking, how do you deal with the online subscriptions that automatically renewed and your credit card gets changed? Well, I mean, once the credit card is changed, obviously those online renewals, it's gonna the whatever company is being charged is gonna reach out to find out why it's not being paid. So there's a natural attrition that's going to happen for that result. If it's something that you want to keep going on, such as a website, a web domain, you're going to have to transition that to new ownership. And that's going to have to be something that's done through the executor. I don't think there's any automatic process. There's going to have to be a death certificate and a proper legal transfer of the rights of that particular account to you. So that's something that has to be done kind of in a more traditional methodology. So Wade says that this link is not working. So Wade, I'm not too sure what the link was from. Where was it put forward? Did somebody share it in the chat, or was it something that we shared? Because I don't recall sharing a Bitly link, and I don't know what it's pointing to. So if you can let us know here in the Q&A. It's Peter Gab. Peter shared a Bitly link. Okay, so Peter, if you can maybe rework that link and come up with one that works. It sounds like a lot of people are interested in clicking on your link. There we go. Thank you. Thanks for that, Friar Wade. Awesome sauce. This is kind of Friar Wade's sweet spot, isn't it? I imagine that this is something that you should be an expert on. Friar Wade, we should have had him on as a guest. Why do we think priests? Because they do. They deal. It's part of the last rites. Have you done your Facebook pro? Have you assigned a Facebook assignee? There we go. Dominique in Alberta, Canada. You can add a family member as a shareholder to your private corporation and take a key person insurance policy. Yeah, so that's good advice there. That's kind of good estate planning type advice. Seems to me good anyways. The insurance process proceeds flow to the remaining shareholders as a tax-free basis, also empowers them to provide an orderly closing or sale of the business. And as Dominic says, I am a tax accountant for the sandwich generation. So he is working with this on an ongoing basis. Thank you for sharing that, Dominic. And it's something that we should all be, this isn't something that Steve is the expert on, and you should only rely on Steve and what's happening on DaughterTech. You should be including real experts in this process. The purpose of this webinar is to get you thinking and get you moving. Okay, fair enough. Seriously, this is the link. So Peter now has the link that he says will work. So I'm going to leave that up in the Q&A for a few moments. Mark says, my Evernote account has some vital information for the executor of my estate may need. Is there any features like LastPass? Not really. I mean, you can share notes from Evernote. And so you could find a way to have like a shared note that you can give them access to regardless of what's happening with you and your account, because each note in Evernote is just basically a web page. But I would say that might not be the best place because it could get lost in there. I would look for some other mechanism for getting vital information to the executor of your estate. I just think that Evernote's kind of a convenience tool for us. It's not necessarily the best transition tool. So I would think about some better way of assuring that information ends up in the hands it should at the time that it should end up in those hands. Do you have an internet privacy webinar? I'm a course creator and work online. No, I haven't done a one on internet privacy. And I've given some thought as to whether or not it's a topic that I can even take on knowledgeably. There are so many issues. But it's certainly one that we'll think about. Thanks for the suggestion. It's a good suggestion. Obviously, one that would have some relevance. What about Evernote? Jan asks. I think Evernote. I'm a big Evernote fan. But definitely giving access to your Evernote account to your loved one or to your executor so they can. But they don't know how you see. The thing with Evernote is it's your system and you know what's in it. Somebody else doesn't. So it's like saying, it's in my house. You can find this document in my house. Well, where do you keep your documents in your house? How do you organize Evernote? I'm not sure Evernote is necessarily going to be the best place because it's a very personal system for storing information. I think pulling it out, parsing it out, and making it far more obvious where things are would be a better thing than trying to use Evernote, than trying to shoehorn Evernote into this particular process. Okay. Kimberly says, ask your loved ones what they want. My husband is emphatic that his Facebook be shut down immediately if something happens. Best idea ever. That's a great piece of, that's a great suggestion, Kimberly, is open the dialogue with your loved ones and ask them what they want. I mean, you can certainly articulate it, and you can tell Facebook that's what you want, and then it'll be done. But I think it's helpful if you let the people closest to you know as well. Okay, the Bitly links was the graphic. The link was the graphic, which is I think what Peter was trying to share. Anonymous attendee. Anonymous attendee. That's a common name. We meet a lot of anonymous attendees. Okay, Kenneth, you should consider leaving it up permanently. There's a lot of good stuff people need. Oh, as far as leaving your Facebook profile and that sort of stuff up there, I'm not too sure exactly what he's referring to, but yeah, I mean, depending, every person's going to be different. How they, how private they are, how much they want shared, how much they don't want shared, those sorts of things. I think that there's arguments for almost everything that can go both ways. Certainly from a personal perspective. From a business perspective, there's a whole different conversation. But from a personal perspective, yeah, it's. I think each person's going to make the thing. I'd probably leave most of my stuff up because I think there's some funny stuff in there. I like to make people laugh occasionally. That would be good. Have you seen the Dead Man Switch Google has? Okay, no, I have not. I am copying that. Dead Man Switch for your account. Look at that. That is, oh, look, I can't copy the text. Can I do it this way? I'm trying to copy the link. John, please put the link in the chat as well so that I can reference it and I can add it to the document that we're going to be sending out later. That looks like an awesome piece of information. The Dead Man Switch that Google has. That was something that I did not find. So thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, credit card gets charged with automatic subscriptions. That's my concern. And I guess one of the things that you do that often happens is they cancel the credit card, and at that point, their automatic subscriptions aren't going to be able to charge it. So, but again, I would be talking to my lawyer or to whoever's helping me with my will as far as how that is handled. Okay, so we're still dealing with the Bitly link that Peter shared, and all seems to be fine. Steve, you don't very often say Evernote. Don't you often say Evernote has a great search function? Yes, I do say, Jan, that Evernote has a great search function, but you know the terms that you're searching for. And my Evernote account has 10,000 pages in it. I just don't think it's going to be the best thing for people to stumble through to find organized and relevant information. And you're not going to know if you have it all. I can look at a document and say that I've created in Evernote and say, yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. That's everything. Somebody coming in and looking for stuff isn't necessarily going to know by looking at the document. I just have a sense that you want something that's a little bit more purpose-built for those important documents rather than Evernote. That's just my opinion. You might well set up a notebook that says the end of me and have all of the relevant documents in the end of me notebook. And actually, that's not a bad idea. If you want to compartmentalize the stuff that way, and that might well work. I've been kind of obviously thinking my way through it as we speak. So there we go. But Jan, good for challenging me on my Evernote search function. Praise. Okay. Kenneth says the webinar. Yes. I don't know what that means. Peter, could you also put that in chat? There we go. Okay, we've got that going. We've got ask Pete to post the link in chat, and you can copy and paste from the chat. That's exactly what I've done, and I think he's already done it. So if not, it will be here. Excellent. Good stuff. We're getting down to the last questions. Last character is a capital F. I was just typing lowercase t. That was a problem. Okay, so Wade was saying why he was having issues with the Bitly link that you folks were having. Jill says, you could tag those important documents in Evernote and tell the Evernote person what to search for, and they'll all pop up. Yep, yeah, I guess you could, Jill. I'm getting pushback on the Evernote thing. A lot of you want to use Evernote for it. You go for it. You go for it. I was putting one forward, one consideration, but obviously you've thought it through a little bit more than I have on that particular case. So now I'm rethinking it as well. Good stuff. Leave the webinar up permanently. Oh, leave this webinar up permanently. Yeah, we're gonna make this data available in a mini course in Thinkific where we can kind of structure it all so that we make sure that we kind of fill in some of the gaps. So this will be a public service that we'll have available, and hopefully maybe we can, with all of the great feedback that we've been getting so far, we can add to it as well. So that's great. Thank you for that, Kenneth. I absolutely will. What are we doing for time? 10:55. Excellent. Good. Active conversation going on here. I like this. Dominic, I have an Uber One notebook, which lists and describes my individual notebooks and their contents. I have a folder file structure there as well. And I also list my paper document locations. Dominic, you've got it all there. It sounds like you've got it all set up well. And obviously, since you're in the business of planning, it sounds like you're walking the walk. Those are great tips, and thanks for sharing that with us. That's a good way to set things up. Well done, sir. Okay, Evernote is working on securing notes and notebooks by password, but not yet. Yeah, Katie, we've been waiting for passwords a long time. You can encrypt content within a note, which is very scary because if you don't have the encryption key, that information is gone forever. But we have been asking, as long as I've been using Evernote, 4 years, we've been begging them for some sort of password protection, which would make this entire equation that we're talking about far more palatable for all of us. And so the sooner Evernote comes up with passwords, the better for encrypting, for protecting notebooks and content. Patricia, sort of related, people often forget about points programs like HBC, Air Miles, etc. And just thought you'd mention it. Good point. I've got lots of points. I think I'll spend them. Before I go. But good point. Mary Ellen says, what about Snapchat? Any thoughts about that? I know most young folks use it, but don't know what Snapchat is. But again, a quick search will tell you exactly what the rules are around Snapchat. If I know Snapchat, it'll be confusing, and I won't understand it as I look at it. Okay. Dominic is female, born in France, grew up in Toronto. Loved me on TV. Sorry, did I call it? I called you a he, did I? Sorry, I apologize, Dominic. Okay. But thank you for clarifying. And yes, grew up in Toronto, born in France. And yes, I enjoyed being on TVO. We used to do a TV show. Most of you know that. Okay, Kimberly, I attended an Evernote webinar for consultants this morning, and password protected notes are being considered but are not imminent. Yeah, they've been stalling. I don't know what's keeping them. It's like if there's one feature that Evernote has had permanently requested, it's that feature. They must have some technical issue where they just feel, or they're terrified of the support ramifications. I think is probably what it comes down to, but I don't understand why. Everybody else can figure out how to do passwords. Okay. And Nexus in trusted traveler certificates. Yeah, I don't know about paper documents. About we were kind of dealing with online profiles and stuff like that. But yeah, the trusted traveler documents and Nexus documents all obviously have to be retired in some form. You have a Nexus login. Yeah. I've got my Nexus login in my LastPass account. So whoever has access to that will have access to the Nexus login. So there we go. Tech issue, Kimberly asks. Tech issue. I'm not sure what that's referring to, but I'm sure that you will verify it. Oh, Jen's back. Yeah, everything's going okay. She's asking if she should jump in. I'm saying, yeah, jump in. See what it's like. We might as well see what it's like having somebody jump in the middle of a webinar. See what it's like. We can tell that she missed all the good stuff. We'll do that. Questions keep coming. They keep coming. We've done 50. I have answered 57 questions. I think that might be a record for less than 1 hour webinar. We're just coming up to the 1 hour mark. Okay. John is, that's still the dead man switch thing. I've just left it up. People have cards which are debit cards and need to have money deposited on them, such as Timmy's and train cards and Metrolinks. Need to figure out how to get the money off of them. That's a good question. I have no idea. Oh, I told Liz to jump in. Sorry. I was in Slack and I wasn't looking at who I was talking to. There we go. Jump in. There we go. I'll tell Liz. There we go. Okay. Don't worry about it. I was just kind of working in the background. Oh, boy. I see. Rita, thanks for joining us on Patreon. We have a new patron. Ding, ding. I should have a bell. Ding, ding. Welcome. I'm wearing a hat. Is that okay? Jen says, well, would you stop bothering me? Just come in. Yes. Everybody, when she comes in with the hat, point at her and laugh. Okay. But yeah, figure out how to get money off of cards like a Starbucks card. And he says Tim's card. Most of the world doesn't know what Tim's is. Tim Hortons here in Canada. Yes, indeed, Ed. That's something that I hadn't thought about. But yeah, it's something you're going to want to be thinking about. Evernote has passwords on premium account. I'm guessing that's why they don't want to give it up with free accounts. They don't really have passwords on the premium account. You can encapsulate. You can you can encode information, but encrypt it, should I say? But not. I don't think there's passwords unless I've missed something. But they don't actually have it. And yeah, it is definitely a feature that I would say would be for premium accounts only. It was because it's worth charging for because everybody wants it. Yes. Okay. Oh, technical support. Yeah, the technical issue for password protection for Evernote might be a nightmare as people have issues with it. So Bertina says, came in late. You mentioned a list that you sent out. No, it's not a list that I sent out. It's a list that we will send out, which has all of the links to of all of the research that we did on this. So Bettina, you will get that along with the replay of the webinar a couple of hours after we're done here today. So yes, you will definitely get that. So there we go. Okay, Barry says Keeper does not have a solution for deceased users since they cannot access your account. They covered that LastPass. We did cover that LastPass has an option for you to designate a person that can request access to your passwords. Does Keeper have something like that? No, we do not have something like that since we do not have access to someone's Keeper account. So maybe Barry is with Keeper, but he certainly seems to know that Keeper does not have a similar functionality. Okay. Oh, Katie says, right, BART cards, fast track subscriptions. Yep. Got a way to claw back that money. I wonder how much. There must be a lot of money that's left on those cards after people pass. Not that secure as a whole. You didn't miss anything. Not that secure as a whole. I didn't miss anything. Not too sure what Katie's referring to there. Okay, Benita thanks me, and I thank you. I have a 4-digit password. Works similar to password lock screen on my Android phone. Okay. Not too sure what that's about. Okay. Yeah, the whole note can be encrypted. Katie in Evernote, exactly. And Barry says I was chatting with him during the webinar. Oh, I'm not with Keeper. Okay, so that was so he was doing some research for it. So it looks like we have worked our way. Oh, Kimberly says 12% of all money on gift cards goes unclaimed. That's pretty good business, isn't it? I should have gift cards. Dottotech gift card, 12%. Wow, it's like a tax on using them for convenience, isn't it? Okay, Dominique, online bills transmitted through ePost directly through online login required download, print to OneNote or Evernote, and or a backup. So again, more solid advice. Dominique, you should be putting on a webinar about this. You should be putting on the practical. I've opened the door, and you can tell by the floodgate of questions that we've had pouring through that there's an opportunity here for you to start building an online brand, an online presence. Take our webinar course and start delivering your own webinars. I think that we, as a community, we're all saying yes, absolutely. There we go. HubDoc can pull all the bills, Dominique says. Excellent. Okay. Oh, okay. That 4-digit comment was in reference to Evernote. Got it, Mary Ellen. Thank you so much. And Dominic saying, love to. Yeah, we'll have to have a chat. Reach out to me, Dominic. We'll coach you up and we'll get you delivering kick-ass webinars with no problem at all. And Katie has given me props for a good segue. Folks, I think we're at the top of the hour. Yeah, we're 11:05. So anybody that has to go now, I'll stick around for a few more minutes. We'll run through a few more questions. I'm starting to fade. And as you can tell, there's a lot of times that I just said, I don't know, you're going to have to look this up online. With the caveat off the top of the webinar today that we are not the expert on this, but we did think that it was well worthwhile having an exploration of the topic. And I love the fact that you folks have pitched in. This has been I've learned a lot, given me some good ideas, and I think it's certainly generated some energy on your guys' side as well. So a reminder, you'll get a webinar replay from this webinar in about a couple of hours, 3 hours by the time I can edit it together, pull all the pieces together, and get the email sent out to you. That replay will be available for 48 hours, except for our patrons at Patreon. You will get access to it beyond that. We will turn this into a mini course. No guarantee on how long that's going to take. I've got Sophia doing some research to add to flesh in all of the places that we've left out, and going through the chat and the Q&A is going to help big time us deciding on other content that we should be adding to this this little tutorial that we'll be putting together. And so anybody that has to leave now, thank you so much for your attention today. Thanks for participating. We've certainly kept a large group of you engaged through the entire webinar, and you've made this webinar what it is. It's been awesome as far as the engagement. So I appreciate that big time. So for those of you that have to leave, till next time, have fun storming a castle. I will stick around here and answer as many other questions. Maybe let's put a limit on it. Let's put like 5 or 6 more minutes, because I'm starting to fade. I've been doing webinar after webinar after webinar, and I got another one to do tomorrow. One that I make money in, though. So I have to be on point for that one tomorrow. All right. Way to support the tribe, Steve. Indeed. Thank you, Benita. I appreciate that. I know, and I can feel that you guys appreciate it as well. I certainly get enough positive feedback from you guys. Kimberly, thanks for the information today. Indeed, it was a good one, wasn't it? It was good fun. When you do webinar for posterity, have Dominique involved. She is great. Indeed, Dominique has been, if we have a first star of webinar attendees, Dominique wins today, hands down. Thanks, Steve. Great topic, great information from Faith. I appreciate that hugely. Any options for 1Password? I'm sure 1Password and Dashlane have the same features. It's just I only checked out LastPass, but I'm pretty sure 1Password would have it as well. That's something you can very quickly check out with a quick visit to their site. And if you're an account holder, you should be able to find that very quickly. Raymond says, Steve, I have a good friend of mine that passed away last September. Sorry to hear that. With what I've learned on today's webinar, I will forward it to his wife if his accounts are not closed. Thanks so much. Well, I appreciate that, Raymond, and I'm sorry to hear of the loss of your friend. That's sad. How do we get a personal consultation with you? You can drop us an email if you'd like, David. info@dottotech.com. It reaches April, and she'll get through to me, or you can also try steve@dottotech.com. That always reaches me. And I'm happy to. See, Jen raised her hand. Oh, interesting. And I didn't let her in. There we go. Panelist. Sorry. So yeah, you can always reach out to me that way. That is interesting. So she couldn't just come in. I had to bring her in, and now she's left. She's left with her hat. Sad. I'm disappointed. Oh well, learning the platform still. Good. Okay, so David, just drop us an email, and we'd be happy to have a chat. Thank you. And that is it. I think we've reached the end. Folks, it's been an absolute slice. Keep your eye open for your email and the replay. To our new patrons, welcome aboard. Thank you very much. We appreciate the support, and we will continue to endeavor to provide great content like this in an ongoing basis to the community, and your support makes a big difference. To our existing patrons, this is why without you guys, we couldn't be doing this. So we appreciate it hugely. Thanks so much for everything. There's Jen saying that you couldn't get in. I'll fill her in on it later. We can talk about her now. What do you think I can? Okay, we'll let it go. All right, folks, till next time. We'll see you next week, probably for Q&A. Might be something a little bit more. There's a possibility we might skip next week. We'll let you know by email. Till next time, have fun storming a castle.